So they take this one very seriously now. They think that their failure to uphold the Sabbath has played a key role in why they experienced the exile. And in Exodus 31, there is another teaching on the Sabbath. This comes at the end of Moses' whole explanation of the Ten Commandments and the stone tablets and everything on them. At the very end of that section is a reiteration of the importance of Sabbath. And in Exodus 31, it is decreed that anybody who violates the Sabbath should be put to death. Sabbath is serious business to these people. In light of all that, I am not surprised that the Sabbath kind of became a rigorous exercise in regimented righteousness. The restrictions that were laid out for Sabbath became very specific and very strict, very tight. You know, they worked out, they said the rule is no work on the Sabbath day. So then they had to figure out what counts as work. And they worked this out down to minutia, down to details, including how far you were allowed to carry a pot of water. Could you go from one room to another in your house? Or how many candles were you allowed to light? Or what kind of emergency care could be done for a person or for an animal that was in trouble? If you had a sheep that fell into a pit or into a well, could you pull them out on the Sabbath? If you had a disease, if you had a sickness or you had an injury, could a doctor treat you on the Sabbath? And the way they figured it had to be life-threatening. If it wasn't, it could wait till tomorrow. We had actual situations where people would go to the doctor and the doctor would say, I can't help you today. Come back tomorrow. It's not life-threatening. I just can't do this on the Sabbath, or it would be a violation. So in the Pharisees' eyes, Jesus and his disciples have clearly broken the Sabbath. This is a clear-cut case of disobedience. And Jesus responds to their challenge, to their accusations, with this little story about David and his men eating the bread from the temple one Sabbath day. The Pharisees are silent. I don't know if it's because the story got through to them, because they realized they had no answer for that, or if it's because they were angry. And I think it may be the latter. I mean, think about what Jesus has done in telling this story. He's basically put himself in the same category as this hero, this king, this ancient hero of the faith, King David. Especially when he refers to himself using the title Son of Man that they had used for David. Jesus is pretty much casting himself in the same light. He is ascribing to himself the same kind of authority that David had to bend the rules of the Sabbath when it was necessary to meet the human need. Now, if I was a Pharisee and someone came along doing that, I would be offended. I would be upset that this person had the great pride, the great hubris to say, I am on par with King David. Now it gets worse from there, because as they come into town, into the synagogue, they find this man with a withered hand. And we don't know how he got that way. We don't know how long he's been afflicted with that, but it's probably safe to say it's been a while. And this is not a life-threatening illness. This is not a life-threatening condition. It wasn't the sort of injury that needs immediate, miraculous attention. But Jesus attends to it anyway. He heals anyway. He frees the man from his affliction by telling him to stretch out his hand, same image that the writer of Deuteronomy had used for God stretching out his mighty hand to save the Israelites, to liberate Israel from the Egyptians. And so Jesus is very publicly, deliberately violating the Sabbath here. He's basically picking a fight with the Pharisees. He didn't heal the man, in a back alley behind the synagogue. He called the man up in front of everyone, said, stand up, reach out your hand. There is no ignoring what Jesus is doing here. He is liberating, he is healing, he is at the synagogue, he is on the Sabbath of all days, disrupting very visibly the expectations and the allowances of their religious tradition. So when the Pharisees again challenge his actions, Jesus responds with The easiest rhetorical question in all of Scripture. Which is better to do, to save life or to kill? To do good works or to do evil? I hope we can all answer that one without a lot of trouble. But the Pharisees don't have an answer for him. Rather, they don't have a verbal answer. They say nothing, and Jesus is angry. Jesus is grieved at their hardness of hearts. But in their actions, the Pharisees do make an answer. They show that they choose killing over saving when they go out and plot with the Herodians about how they're going to destroy Jesus.